Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman.
And I'm Richard Bimmer.
And this is episode 13 of Rolling Release, our weekly podcast about the perpetual improvement of Linux. How you doing this week, Richard?
Good. I just moved into my apartment on campus last week, so that's
cool.
why I wasn't there.
All right.
I don't think we had an episode at all last week, did we?
No, last week we did not. But yep, we're back this week, and there is some news that happened over the past 2 weeks. Most of our news is from the past 1 week. We're going to jump right in here, Richard. What do you say?
All right.
All right, and our first story this week is the Skype redesign is now available for Linux. So, Rich, do you remember when we talked about the Skype redesign some weeks back, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how they didn't say it was available for Linux. They released it for PC and Mac, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has now been released for Linux. So like we weren't sure if they were going to bring it over. Now we know they did bring it over for Linux. Now a lot of people do not like this new Skype layout, and that's not just the Linux people talking. There's an article from The Verge about very negative feedback that Microsoft's been receiving. But yeah, no, this new Skype version is available for Linux, and you can go ahead and opt into it if you're on Linux. Now, for me, since I'm on Arch, all that I had to do was download the new version from the AUR. It was the same package as before. I just downloaded the new version, built it, installed it. Richard, you're on Ubuntu, so you weren't able to easily get this new Skype yet?
Yeah, I was currently highlighting articles at the time, so I haven't gotten to try that. I did update my packages and didn't see anything new.
Right, so just doing
since we are in Discord, I'll close and restart Skype.
Yeah, just doing an apt-get just doing an apt-get update is not going to update to this new version, though, is what they're saying. According to OMG Ubuntu, Microsoft has a thing where you have to go and opt in to the new desktop preview if you do want it. Unlike on Arch, you know, opting in is just updating on Arch. That's how that works. But yeah, Microsoft debuted the new next generation Skype back in June. That's probably when we talked about it. It's a mobile first design is what they called it, and that's why a lot of people don't like it. I don't really like that it's mobile first because I'm a desktop first person. I don't know about you, Richard.
Yeah, I am definitely too.
Our chat is asking if this is a native application. No, it is not. It is still an Electron app. However, it puts chat front and center, is what they say. Skype Preview puts chat front and center. That's a quote from Microsoft. Now, you can see a screenshot of it here. I've actually got it installed as well. I want to say two things about the new layout. And by the way, let me see here. Richard, I'm putting me and your Skype conversation on screen, so, you know. All right. We weren't talking about anything sensitive or anything, though. But,
no.
But yeah, this is the new two-pane setup. Now, number one, yeah, I like that the chat's front and center, because do you remember when we were trying to send chat messages with the old Skype a little while ago? And I couldn't figure out how to open up the chat when you sent me something once. So that's nice.
That was my problem as well.
Yeah, so it's nice that they're putting
when you're in full screen with video, it's hard to even see the chat anymore, and you forget how to, bring it back.
Right. Now, here's the other thing I want to say about the new layout, though. Doesn't this look... Do you see the screenshot of it?
Yeah.
Skype used to look like this,
I've seen it
right?
on...
I'm fairly certain this
I don't know. I feel like on Mac it did, 3-4 years ago.
No, I mean, I haven't used Skype since I was using Windows 7 as my day-to-day operating system, which has been a few years. But back when I used Skype, this is what I remember it looking like. Like, we had the contacts pane on the left, and we had the chat pane on the right. And the buttons were there to start a call. I mean, this is what I remember Skype looking like. Like the Skype Electron app was weird because it was a different app. But I bet if you compare this Skype to, the Linux Qt version of Skype was always weird because it had several windows, which the Windows version of Skype never had, I don't think. But
yeah, I'm in the old Electron app right now. And I feel like their layout has always been with the contacts on the left, the chat on the right, and the call buttons at the top. I think what they just did with this is they made chat bigger, and they kind of, for example, in a screenshot, it shows everything. The contacts are shown a lot bigger. All the individual messages are a lot bigger.
I just realized
names are bolder and show less information.
When you say they made it bigger, I just realized that I cannot click and drag to make the pane between the contacts and chat bigger. And our chat room for the stream is complaining about Electron apps right now, and I was about to say it's not that bad, even though it's an Electron app. But really, that's something, if this was a native application, I remember this layout on Windows Skype from years ago, but I know that you could drag that line to make the chat bigger, It's like a simple UI thing to drag columns to make them bigger in a program, and since this is an Electron app, you can't do that here. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a disadvantage of Electron. But yeah, this is what the new Skype looks like. Now here's my, all right, so we'll go through a couple more things before I keep talking. So we've got, you can do more together in group calls with real-time screen sharing and photo sharing. Now screen sharing, Richard, Skype on Windows and Mac OS has had screen sharing already, right?
Yeah.
But it has screen sharing on Linux now, which we haven't had
Yes.
ever.
And
So,
unfortunately, I have not gotten to try yet since I haven't updated. But
right. But yeah, Skype on Linux now
which
does
that's
support.
definitely definitely in my view, one of the like probably best part of this update would be because the other features. I don't know. To me, I'm not a huge fan of the UI. I kind of agree with people who are on the verge and who are saying that the mobile first design is not that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the new
To
design
take on.
layout wise. I've got some problems with the colors, and we'll just go ahead and talk about it right now. I mean, look at these colors. First of all, I'm using the dark theme right now because the light theme was awfully light. So go figure, I turned on the dark theme. And like the Discord dark theme, if you look at Discord, it's like grays and like maybe a little bit of purple tint, but most of it's like a dark gray or a light gray, depending on what you're looking at on Discord, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Skype dark theme, and I don't know if you're watching our stream right now, Richard, but like my Skype with dark theme, it's literally black with white text on it. It's way too strong. I don't know if it's like actually like 100% black, but it's definitely way too dark. And there's also no difference in the shade between like the contacts panel and the
I'm
chat
watching
panel.
the stream now, and I can definitely see that.
Yeah, so it doesn't look good color-wise. I love the layout. Colors suck right now. Also, what's up with these chat bubbles? Like, you see how it starts with blue on the left and white on the right? It's a gradient on every single chat bubble. That just looks tacky. It looks old-timey. Now, I can actually go here, and you can customize that. I'll go to View Profile. It's under...
The same thing. They still have the gradient effect. You just
Right.
have different colors.
Yeah, I go under color. There's different options I can choose from, but I can click another color here and click OK. Go back out here. Well, that didn't even take effect, did it? No, yeah, I guess that just sucks.
You have to maybe open another conversation and go back. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't even show you that it looks bad with the other colors because now it's not changing colors even when I try to. But yeah, this gradient thing going on. You know, if you're going for the modern like mobile first theme, it's all about flat colors now anyway. So I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to put gradients in if they're going for a modern theme.
Also, I just feel like the mobile first trend is to make everything, the text and everything, really large, which kind of gets on my nerves because, like, I don't know if you've used the mobile version of Twitter, the new one, but after that update, they made the content like you could fit so much less content because they made the default font size way larger.
Yeah.
And so like tweets, like you could see 2 or 3 tweets on screen compared to like the 4 or 5 I could read before at once. So like I had to immediately adjust the font size way down.
Yeah.
And for example, here, like I can tell where it shows my name is way larger than when I'm like looking at you on mine.
Well, I'm looking at
they got rid of the status stuff. They got rid of like
all right,
a lot of the other things.
I like that though. Because I remember when they added the status stuff, and I thought it made no sense. Me and you were both using Skype before they had statuses. I mean, you could set yourself a status forever on Skype, and it would be like if somebody looks at your profile, then it would say underneath your name, it would say what your status is. Do you remember though? Like they started integrating. It was right around when Microsoft bought them. They started integrating with Facebook, and then it was like, oh, share what you're doing, like trying to make it into a social network. Do you remember that when they added that? Like, that never made sense to me.
If you go to the front page of Skype, it shows all that. Actually, I don't even know how to access the front page of Skype in my current one, but and I'm not sure you can in the new update. But there, it would be like a feed. Like
but I never used the Skype.
Statuses.
Yeah, I never used the Skype feed though, so I'm happy they got rid of that, honestly. And you're talking about how your name looks bigger and everything. I don't want to click on anyone else's stuff here, but I don't think I don't think anything looks too big at all. I mean, there could be a little less space between the chat messages vertically, I guess, but in terms of like the contact list, I'm fine with how big those are. I am on a high DPI monitor, but if I drag it over to my 1080p monitor, it still doesn't look bad.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the update on this yet, but I had been basing most of my stuff off how it was affected when I updated on my iPhone a while back when I updated the Skype app.
Okay.
On that. Like everything got substantially bigger, and it was like I could just like the Twitter thing. The trend had been I could now see like 2 messages on screen at once,
Yeah.
as opposed to the old
Well, yeah.
system in which I could see a lot.
Yeah, I'm not having a problem with that on Skype right now. My main problem is just the colors. They definitely need to touch those up. Looking at the article again, though, there's a couple new features. There's a notification panel now for keeping track of mentions in group chats, which could be nice if you're using this for a lot of group chats. It can get messy. There is all right, so here's something. If you get Skype on your phone now with this new Skype, there's like that Snapchat feature basically where you can capture a photo and send it and it disappears after 5 seconds, right? We talked about that last time. So that is not in the desktop version, only in the mobile version. On the one hand, I like
I don't have a webcam, so that doesn't affect me a whole lot right now.
Well, here's two things about that. One, the author says, oh, it's a good thing that's not in the desktop version because I hate those features, right? And it sort of makes sense that like that's, Snapchat's a thing you do on your phone. You're not going to be doing that on your desktop. But on the other hand, the whole point of what they're trying to do is like, oh, it's Skype. Use it anywhere. It's cross-platform. iOS, Android, Linux, macOS, Windows. They're saying it in a different order than that. But yeah, their whole thing that they're trying to do is get you to use one app for your communication across all your devices. So why would they have a feature that's on some of the devices and not others? It seems kind of fragmented to me.
It does seem weird. You're right that they would have a feature on one and not on the others. And at a certain point, I don't get why that would bother you, just having a feature you don't end up using. I mean, if you're not going to take a Snapchat,
no, I mean that's
kind of like that and send it. I don't know why it bothered the author that much, but
we've made fun of that before. I think though, where like everyone wants to make the next blank, everyone wants to make the next Snapchat. Skype's not the only person. There were lots of messaging apps that were cloning Snapchat, and it's unneeded. If you want to use Snapchat, use Snapchat.
Like clone stories.
Right. And it's like, I didn't use that Twitter feature that they added to, or the Facebook feature that they added to Skype, and use like where you log in and you got your profile. It was annoying to me to log in and see that every day. It's like, I don't need this screen here. I don't want that screen here. It's taking up space. So I can understand if a feature is just so entirely, completely useless and out of scope that it shouldn't be there, then don't put it there. I understand that. But yeah, going through the article some more, there is Microsoft is collecting feedback through an in-app mechanism since this is a desktop preview. And yeah, the last thing the article says is Skype screen sharing from Linux works. Now, Richard, there is a caveat to this. You want to guess what it is?
What?
You don't want to take a guess?
That I won't work with Wayland.
Good guess, because yes, that is the caveat. The screen sharing feature will not work under Wayland. If you're already running Ubuntu 17.10, for example, the next version of Ubuntu that's coming out next month, then you're going to have to log out of your Wayland session if you're running NVIDIA with open source drivers or Intel or AMD. Now, keep in mind, like, most people are going to be falling back to X11 anyway. It's not like Wayland is actually ready, but Wayland is technically the default. So if you're running Wayland and you happen to actually be using Wayland, then you're going to have to log out, log in under X if you want to use the screen sharing feature with Skype. So
by the way, chat is asking about free alternatives to Skype.
Yes, they are.
I assume you're meaning open source by free because Skype itself is free. I mean, I guess
they're talking about free as in freedom.
Multiple. Yeah.
This is the person who was just talking to us about how they didn't want to use G apps. Like this person knows. Yeah. So let's see here. Free alternatives to Skype. It's not exactly an alternative. Let's see here. All right, I'm thinking Jitsi for video calling is open source, and I think maybe Libre. This isn't something we researched. This is a live question from chat. But now me and Richard, we were using Jitsi for a while. It wasn't great for our usage. But we were also like live streaming and doing other things. So if you're wanting video calling, I'd recommend Jitsi if you're looking for something free and open. Now for text, here at Nerd on the Street, we use Rocket Chat for text chat, and it's different. It's not really a Skype alternative. It's more of a Slack alternative. But if you're looking for text chat, it's something you can consider. Now with Skype, it's something that you join the service, and then you can connect to other people who have joined the service. So something like that, you really need a central. You need a centralized system if you want just to be able to text people without having them sign up on your server first. So for that sort of thing, I mean, yeah.
Or if you don't want to have to run a server for it.
Right, that too. And like Jitsi, you don't have to run a server for it because there are servers available. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, for text chat, Telegram is mostly open source. It's not completely open source though. Their encryption I don't think is open source, but Telegram is more free than Skype. Discord honestly is not really. Discord works great, and it's a Skype alternative that me and Richard are using right now, and it's got text and voice, and they're rolling out video chat. But yeah, it's
random people.
Yeah, well, Discord is just as locked down as Skype is, if not more, because of its server-based architecture. So, yeah, I mean, our person in chat is saying they're just gonna stick with IRC. It's like, I don't think IRC has video calling capability. I don't think it has audio calling capability. So, yeah, I mean, WebRTC is where it's gonna go. I mean, if Rocket Chat had good video calling support, we'd be using that. Yeah, watch that space.
Unfortunately, I accidentally opened a call with it once and like completely glitched out. So.
Yeah, it's not quite there yet, but yeah. Next story though, and maybe I'll do a video on free Skype alternatives in the future. Next story, introducing the new GNOME Settings panel. It's no longer called the Control Center. It's now called GNOME Settings, going along with GNOME Web and GNOME Files and GNOME everything else, which once again, it means if you've got it installed side by side with another desktop operating system or another desktop environment, you're not going to know what any of your programs are because they're just called settings. It's like, which settings is this? Is this GNOME settings? Is it It's just settings. So that's annoying, but yeah, GNOME went ahead and redesigned their entire control center. They've been working on this for a long time. You couldn't tell because they were working on fixing the panels, which when they say panel, they mean control panel. They mean the individual page in the control center. And then switched to the new shell after they're done with all of that, which they have now switched to the new shell for the new control center. So yeah, the new settings layout is the official one as of GNOME 3.25.91, which will be released with GNOME 3.26. So this is what it looks like. There's a screenshot in the article. It looks pretty nice, Richard. What do you think about it?
Yeah, the screenshot definitely looks pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with it. I mean, the GNOME settings panel, a lot of settings panels really, the GNOME settings panel looked pretty similar to the KDE one actually, where it's just like a bunch of different icons with different places you can go. And KDE has a search panel in here, which I have to use often. But yeah, even in GNOME, it would get a little confusing. Which icon do I need to click on? So this new settings panel is a two-paned approach, sort of like iOS settings. It sort of reminds me of actually.
Yeah, that's actually what it kind of reminded me too when I saw it.
Yeah, on an iPad, because on an iPhone it's one pane at a time, and then the iPad is side by side. But yeah, new layout, and yep, they've been working on it for a year and a half. 15 people worked on it. Over 30,000 lines of code were changed, which that's a lot of lines of code. It is going to be a lot easier to make this work on low resolution displays. They did redo the network panel specifically to work with the new layout, because if you look at a screenshot of the old networking panel, it had a left pane and a right pane just in itself, the old networking control panel. So they figured, oh, well, we can't have like a left pane and a right pane and then another left pane. That's just too many panes. So they have redesigned the networking area. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Have you seen the networking screenshots?
Well, I'm looking at the stream right now.
Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about this in particular with the just the base networking control panel, I guess it's called. Where you've got like all of your different connections listed, or your possible connections listed. They've got wired, Bluetooth, VPN, and it looks nice.
I can imagine that getting messy,
right?
Particularly with wireless.
Yeah,
they don't really
have
show wireless there.
Yeah, that was what I was about to say. This looks nice, but they don't have Wi-Fi in this example. So if you've got 30 different Wi-Fi networks showing up and you need to add a VPN, you're going to be scrolling a while to get to the bottom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like this next screenshot they've got though. I do like this new place to put your settings in for individual connections. Look at this. You can select your if you're doing DHCP or not. You can put your DNS in here, turn it automatic on or off. You can set your IP address and everything there. And this is the same functionality we had before, but they have reorganized it, or they've reordered it.
A lot cleaner, yeah.
It does look a lot cleaner, and this is something that hasn't changed for years. Like, ever since I started using Linux until the very last version of GNOME before this one, it looked basically the exact same, the connection settings panel. And it did look cluttered. There were a lot of settings that I never use, and they've sort of simplified it here. So I actually like what they're doing with this dialog box in particular. They are going to split up the Bluetooth connections into a new control panel. So they are going to, in the future, you can see they've got wired Bluetooth and VPN. They're actually going to take Bluetooth out and put it into another panel. They're going to call it mobile broadband. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you should call that, but maybe just call it Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like that would be confusing to a lot of people.
But yeah, this new network dialog that I was talking about, it's called the Advanced Connection Editor dialog. So that's there. And then they've got some new icons for a couple of the panels. They say that testing the new settings app and filing bugs would be a tremendous contribution. So if you're a GNOME user, feel free to give back a little bit by testing the settings app, filing bugs. They say bonus points if you provide a patch fixing that issue if you happen to be a developer. But even if you're not, it sounds like they are open to feedback. So yeah. Any other thoughts about that?
Is asking if this makes the tweak tool irrelevant.
No, it's all the same. It's all the same settings. It's just a different layout for the settings. So,
which I mean, definitely is welcomed.
Yeah, no,
it looks a lot better.
It's a welcome change, but yeah, no, if you were using tweak tool because you wanted extra settings, you're not going to get more settings with this. All right, our next story you want to talk about, Richard? It is Google's doing some stuff.
Right. So basically, Google is mandating the Linux kernel versions in Android Oreo, which is going to be the new version of Android releasing. And basically, for a while, they were just letting the OEMs use whatever version of the kernel they wanted to, as long as it passed the certification tests that Google had laid out.
Right.
This was mostly working. They talk about in this article how it was mostly working, but there were a few that were then falling through the cracks and using really old, outdated versions of kernel.
Right. So when you say falling through the cracks, what they mean is most of the OEMs by themselves were already using up-to-date kernels, but there were a few smaller OEMs that were starting to use older kernels, and Google saw that and wasn't happy about it.
Mm-hmm. So like the version 3.18 of Linux kernel is like at end of life right now, and they said basically starting this year, smartphones that ship with Android Oreo is going to be required to launch with kernel 4.4 or newer.
Yeah, for all system on a chips produced or productized in 2017. So this is for new devices being announced.
So basically, this would make obviously the Linux kernel more secure because it's using the most recent version, and it also makes it easier to patch, is the hopes, because they're going to try and require Project Treble, which I don't know a whole lot about Android.
Yeah, well, not try and require, it's part of the requirement.
Yeah, well, they're going to require, And basically, they're going to require Project Treble, which is working to modularize Android, from what I read.
Yeah.
And that the idea is to this would make it easier to also just update each core module separately, so they could hopefully update the kernel as well.
Well, it makes it so that you don't have to update the drivers in order to update your Android version. So Google can ship you an Android version without having to go through HTC to get the drivers first.
Okay. So that would hopefully speed up updates going to...
It would speed up higher level updates while making lower level ones less important.
Okay.
But not necessarily speeding them up.
They were getting, right? Because a lot of the OEMs, like your actual phone on your network would not get updated. It would be like 5 months behind.
Right, yeah. So they're trying to say, OEMs say, we can't update your Android version because we don't have enough resources to write the new drivers, which most of the times that's not actually what's going on. The OEM, they're just lazy and don't want to update Android, or they want you to buy a new phone is the real reason. This is Google trying to make a compromise and say, all right, well, we'll let you keep the kernel version and the drivers the same, but then ship our new Google apps and everything on top of it, is what Project Treble is doing. Now, like you mentioned, or like we mentioned earlier, this is only a requirement for new system on a chip, so new chips in new devices that are being produced this year and launched this year. If you have an existing device that's upgraded to Android Oreo, it's only required to run kernel version 3.18 or newer, and it does not have to be upgraded to support Project Treble.
Which seems to kind of defeat a lot of the purpose of this, I kind of feel.
Not really. Well, Richard, here is the thing. If they tried to require everyone who upgrades to Android Oreo to support Project Treble and have a 4.x Linux kernel, you know what would happen?
What?
Is manufacturers would say, we need to do all that work to upgrade to Android O. Guess we're not upgrading to Android O.
Yeah, and I guess I can see that, but I don't know, then it just kind of fractures even the people running Android Oreo, meaning like you could be running Android Oreo on a different kernel anyway.
That's
then.
already how it worked, though.
Yeah.
And at least with this new requirement for the new devices, in 5 years,
forward,
everyone with a device is going to have 4.x
I guess
or above.
small steps.
Yeah, that's what
Small
it is.
steps is the idea.
They're
Over
looking.
time, it'll eventually even itself out.
Yeah,
but it's going to be more than just this. This is kind of just the early kind of stage moving towards that idea, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other thoughts about that story?
Not a whole lot. So I think that's probably pretty much everything.
Yeah. Our chat is asking, how is Fuchsia's progress? I don't know how Fuchsia's progress is. There haven't been any more articles about it, so they're probably still working on it internally, but we don't know. Unless, have you read up about Fuchsia anymore, Richard?
No.
All right. Well, our next story that we're talking about here is SUSE put out a blog post basically declaring that they are going to continue supporting Btrfs. So you may recall a few weeks back, I'm not sure, this might have been a week we missed, or maybe not, but did we talk about when Red Hat dropped Btrfs?
I don't think we did.
All right, yeah, Red Hat dropped Btrfs. Like they said, all right, but yeah, no, we did. I think we talked about this because Btrfs was an experimental feature in Red Hat, and they basically said this is never going to move out of the experimental phase. We're just going to drop it because Btrfs has had some problems. It's been a little bit rocky with stability and whatnot. Now, SUSE being a fierce, they're another big enterprise distro and organization. Now they're based in Europe. They're a little bit different. They're running OpenSUSE rather than Fedora, which they're different projects and everything. But yeah, SUSE has put out a blog post talking about how they are going to continue contributing to and supporting and pushing forward Btrfs, even though Red Hat has dropped it. Because a lot of people, when Red Hat dropped it, they said, well, that's it, Btrfs is dead. But SUSE is basically saying, not if we have anything to do with it, which we'll see if they have the poll for this or not. But they start off the article with a little bit of a jab at Red Hat. They worded this really weird. I was talking to Richard about this. It's a German company, so they don't have great English. But basically, they said that Red Hat is a, quote, rather small contributor to Btrfs, and they say SUSE is the strongest contributor to Btrfs today. Now, it's interesting to say SUSE is the strongest contributor to Btrfs today. Today, Red Hat is no longer a contributor. Yeah. So I wonder if yesterday, when Red Hat was still contributing, if that would have been a true statement or not. But they say SUSE is committed to Btrfs as the default file system for SUSE Linux Enterprise. So that's a nice, solid statement there. And they say SUSE is not alone in that Facebook, Fujitsu, Oracle, and others are actively involved in contributing to Btrfs, making it a true community effort, because all those people are communities and not corporations, of course. So we've got enterprise readiness. They're talking about some of the features in Btrfs. SUSE started their involvement with Btrfs by making copy on write and snapshot support in Btrfs 6 years ago. Then they added out-of-band deduplication in 2012, simple RAID functionality in 2014, which turned into a huge fireball and almost killed it. And then compression in 2015 they added, and they just ended up supporting the eagerly anticipated send-receive functionality last year in 2016. Now, against the demand of some partners, SUSE is bragging that they are refusing to support automatic defragmentation, in-band deduplication, and higher RAID levels because the quality of these options is not where it ought to be. So they're like bragging that, oh, we're not shipping unstable stuff. I guess that's a good.
They're saying they're the biggest contributor now, so maybe it's on them to start fixing this stuff.
I mean, make it
up.
make it stable. Yeah.
I mean, they were only saying basically less than one thing a year over the average.
Now, well,
2012 to 2016.
Richard, have you ever written a file system? I completely understand that it's taken them a long time to do this because, files, this is freaking complicated stuff. We've been using ext. Yeah. We've been using ext on Linux forever, for a long time. Maybe not forever, but ever since I started using Linux, we've been using ext. I think ext4 was out before I started using Linux. So, file systems don't move often. I mean, when did Microsoft last update their file system? They're using NTFS. That started with Windows, was that XP or 2000?
I don't know.
It was one of those two that NTFS started with. Microsoft hasn't updated their file system in 15 years or so. And
they still make people pay the royalty fees to use FAT to support it.
Huh. Well, yeah.
It's literally just the file allocation table. You still have to pay a royalty fee to use it.
Well, yeah. I completely understand why it's taking so long to get Btrfs moving forward. It is unstable right now. That's why I'm not using it. But yeah, SUSE is saying that people should use it for mission critical systems. And SUSE Enterprise 12, so this is what they are shipping. SUSE Enterprise 12, they added snapshot rollback of the entire root file system. So you can do a snapshot of your entire computer, including your kernel version and updates that you have. And as of today, that was released in 2014. Now, 3 years later, it's still the only mature implementation of this functionality in the Linux world. So yeah, SUSE is the only enterprise distro with snapshot rollback of the entire root file system in the file system support built in, and that's because of Btrfs. They're also working on some things for the future, quality of service on the storage level they're working on, and also they've already got compression built into the file system. They are working on encryption at the file system level. So yeah. I do think that it would be cool to have some of these features on a desktop. I can't see where I would use all of it personally, but some of it. I think it would be neat. So yeah, that is what's going on with Btrfs. Anything you have to say about that?
No, not a whole lot. So.
All right.
Sounds like we covered everything.
And our next story is Ubuntu Budgie, special edition computers. Who was talking about this? Me? Yeah, I was talking about this. So Ubuntu Budgie, this was an interesting story for me to read about because Ubuntu Budgie has partnered with Nimbisoft, who is a no-name OEM. Nimbisoft is a Linux OEM, and they ship Linux on all their computers. Ubuntu Budgie has partnered with them, so you can now purchase computers with Ubuntu Budgie pre-installed. Now, Richard, you didn't even know what Ubuntu Budgie was when I sent you this article, did you?
No.
So what Ubuntu Budgie is it's Ubuntu with the Budgie desktop environment, and Budgie is the desktop environment that was originally written for Solus as part of the Solus distribution, which is an independent rolling release distribution that I haven't been following, but apparently it's gotten really big while I've been turned the other direction. So now the interesting thing about this is that I thought it was strange when Ubuntu Budgie came out, like as a distro. I thought it was weird when Ubuntu Budgie was released, because think about other distributions with self-developed desktop environments. What other ones of those do we know of? We've got Linux Mint with Cinnamon, right? What other distribution?
Elementary OS, maybe?
Yeah, well, okay, well, there's another one. So Elementary OS, we'll do that one first. Elementary OS has, what's it called, Pantheon? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Is there an Ubuntu Pantheon?
I don't think so. There might be.
No, there's not. Can you get Pantheon?
No, but I meant you can get Pantheon on Ubuntu, I think. Like you could just manually add it, but
well, you can manually do any of it, yeah, because it's all open source. But is there an Ubuntu Pantheon spin?
No.
There's not a Fedora Pantheon spin.
Yeah.
You can get Pantheon on Arch manually, like you're saying, but like it's recommended that you don't do that because it's not made for things other than Elementary OS. So that's a desktop environment and a distro that go together. We've got Linux Mint with Cinnamon. Once again, Cinnamon actually took off on Arch a little bit, but it's still recommended that you don't do that. There's no Ubuntu Cinnamon. There's no Fedora Cinnamon. There's no OpenSUSE Cinnamon. Cinnamon is only for Linux Mint, developed by Linux Mint. And we've got Ubuntu had Unity. Did you see anyone running Unity on Arch or Fedora? No. Ubuntu developed Unity. That's what you had. Of course, that was an Ubuntu spin because it was Ubuntu. But it's really weird to me that like Solus came out and they're like, oh, we've got this desktop environment, Budgie. It's just for us. We've made it from scratch. And then like Ubuntu, who hasn't been doing spins recently, like they missed Pantheon, they missed Cinnamon. They hit Budgie somehow, and now they've got an Ubuntu Budgie spin, and it's popular enough to partner with these people. Now, of course, I don't think you should purchase a computer based on what operating system or what Linux distribution comes on it. If you want to get a Linux desktop or a Linux laptop, I get that. I purchased a computer from System 76. But, I can buy an Ubuntu computer and put Arch on it. And it sounds like Nimbisoft, all of Nimbisoft's computers come with Linux. Like, none of them come with Windows. See, yeah, they're very front page. We build laptops and desktops born to run Linux. And that's a quote that, like, System 76 also uses the wording born to run Linux. I guess that's just a buzz phrase now. But if you...
System 76 has a kind of competitor, too. I mean, I don't know how
Well,
long
not
Nimbisoft's
really,
been
because
around. I didn't hear him.
no, yeah, there's a reason you haven't heard about Nimbisoft, just like Introware. Like, there are a lot of these smaller, I mean, Linux Penguin or Think Penguin, that's what it is. There are a ton of really small OEMs. System 76 is still by far the largest one, but yeah, now here's the difference though. So you're not just purchasing a computer with Ubuntu Budgie pre-installed. When you purchase a computer with Ubuntu Budgie will receive a percentage of the proceeds as part of this partnership.
Ubuntu Budgie gets some of the proceeds from.
Yeah, Ubuntu Budgie gets some of the money when you buy one of these computers with Ubuntu Budgie pre-installed. Now, it's kind of weird. Like, that seems weird to me. I don't know if that's like a commission thing because Ubuntu Budgie is raising awareness for them. That's probably what it is. But think about this. So Budgie is the desktop environment made by the Solus project for the Solus project, right? What is Ubuntu Budgie spending money on?
Like, all they're doing is, I guess, other than like hosting images.
Yeah, what do
a little bit of bandwidth on their site?
What do the Ubuntu Budgie developers do? They contribute to Solus, not Ubuntu Budgie, if they're contributing at all.
Unless it's just going back to Solus.
Right. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we've got a spin getting proceeds. I mean, Ubuntu Mate is probably the most solid community spin. Like, we've got Ubuntu Gnome that's been out, but Ubuntu Gnome has always been, even though it's like shutting down now, Ubuntu Gnome, since it started, it was just like a side, people do this just for fun. Xubuntu, people do that just for fun. Lubuntu, people do that just for fun. Ubuntu Mate was like the first distro that was ever like, oh, we are a spin of Ubuntu, but we are our own community. We're not part of the Ubuntu community, it's just Ubuntu Mate. And seems like Ubuntu Budgie's kind of doing the same thing. It's really weird. Like, we're seeing less distributions, but like spins are making a comeback. Flavors are making a comeback, it kind of seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all orders include Ubuntu Budgie stickers and a thank you note from the team. Also, you can specify if you want the super key to have the Ubuntu Budgie logo on it instead of whatever Nimbisoft puts on their other computers. So yeah, any other thoughts about that?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Next story, LibreOffice 5.4.1 has been released, and it's got more than 100 bug fixes and regression fixes included. That's a lot of bugs and regressions that have been fixed. Let's see, it also adds more document compatibility improvements, and then it allows you to install both LibreOffice 5.3 and 5.4 side by side on the same machine on Linux and Mac OS, which Windows could already do. Now, the reason that's kind of cool is because 5.3 is the still version, 5.4 is the fresh release, I believe. So you can have the stable LibreOffice, and then if you want to live on the edge of your Office documents, then you can also try out the fresh LibreOffice. Now, in my experience, LibreOffice Fresh has always been pretty stable anyway. But
yeah, so you don't have to worry about. You probably aren't gonna have to worry about it like wiping or destroying your actual document.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a.
It's not like.
Right, it's not gonna be super unstable if you're using Fresh. But if you do want to have that still version on there as a backup, you can install 5.3.6 and 5.4.1 at the same time on Linux and Mac OS, and Windows could already do it. So yeah, that is cool. Good job to LibreOffice. Nice quick story. Richard, do you want to talk about Red Hat adding .NET Core 2.0 to Linux? Yeah.
Basically, they talk about how Red Hat will now support Microsoft's open source .NET Core 2.0 on both Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Red Hat OpenShift, and Red Hat OpenShift Container Platform, which that's a big thing because they would actually be supporting it on the containers, which would be really important for it. And then there was some backstory on the .NET Core, and this one actually was released August 14th, so the open source version of it. And it's pretty impressive because it basically supports like .NET 2.0 open source across all three platforms, which is a big step for Microsoft in terms of the open source community. Like, I kind of had avoided learning C# and the stuff that I had on Microsoft's end for a while, particularly when it was like being somewhat big 3 or 4 years ago, because I wanted to kind of stay with stuff that was open source that I could put on a cheaper like Linux box and not have to worry about having to get Windows Server, say, to run it. And so I think this is really kind of I think this is going to make C# and .NET much more important, probably, because it's going to make it more commonly used.
Yeah.
And it's going to make it more important to know, and there's going to be more jobs offered in it, in like the language and knowing it. But basically this version, in addition to this version obviously being supported on Red Hat Linux, it's also moving 2.0 now went from 13,000 APIs to 32,000 in 2.0 now. So they've more than doubled. And most of these were to increase compatibility with .NET 2.0, which is
Right.
getting the .NET Standard 2.0, which is getting confusing from Core. but since that's kind of since they're kind of different now. But also it supports still Visual Basic, which I found interesting. They
Yeah.
still support all the way back there, not just C# and F#.
Mhm.
And but the main thing with containers, I think, is what's going to make it really a big thing with Red Hat and supporting it in containerized applications.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you'll be able to now run C# stuff and stuff that was traditionally only on a Windows server on Red Hat Linux, and also on just in a containerized system for much cheaper. And I feel like many more people are going to move to C# and learning these kind of Microsoft languages.
Mhm.
And I
So
think that's pretty much the most things that the article talked about that I
yeah.
highlighted and considered significant.
Yeah, this is really who Red Hat is, and why they're so successful and why they make so much money. They're the first commercial Linux provider who is offering enterprise support for .NET Core on its platform. No other Linux vendor is doing that. SUSE isn't doing that. Red Hat sees why people are using Windows over Linux, and then they go in and they say, all right, well, let's bring that to Linux. So yeah, you can get .NET Core 2.0. Will be available soon through Red Hat products as RPMs, so you can install with Yum, or as Linux container images, as well, as Richard mentioned. So yeah, that is
But I
all.
mean, it's also important to mention that it was really Microsoft that did most of this work because they made this compatible with Windows, Linux, and Mac OS when they.
Well, Microsoft's doing the work there,
Yeah.
but Red Hat's the one into. Microsoft's not reaching out to SUSE to do this. They're not reaching out to Canonical to do this for sure.
Yeah. But by them doing that, that was, if Microsoft hadn't done that, obviously the support would never come to the community. So I think it's kind of nice that they seem to be embracing the existence of Linux a little bit more.
It's important that you have an enterprise support company back it up, because without that, I mean, Microsoft could release all of their source code to the world, then you can have people popping up with like free Windows and everything, but no company, no corporation is going to rely on open source code without somebody to back it up. I certainly see what you're saying. Yeah, no, of course, Microsoft did most of the work here, and yes, I appreciate that they're going more into open source because they understand if they don't, they're gonna die out. But yeah, if you don't have Linux vendors actually using Microsoft stuff, then it's not gonna get picked up by big corporations using it anyway. But yeah, no, definitely cool that Microsoft is making more of their stuff open source. Yeah. So our final story this week is about a smartphone, and it's from Purism. Now, in case you don't know, Purism, like last year, I think it was, they crowdfunded on Kickstarter, I think. It was definitely a third-party crowdfunding platform. They crowdfunded the Librem 13 and the Librem 15 laptops, and they might have actually done more than one round of crowdfunding for those. But yeah, they made a couple of laptops that were privacy-focused, and they were almost entirely Libre software on them. They had some issues with their BIOS having proprietary blobs in it. But yeah, it also came with hardware, microphone, and webcam switches on the device. So it's a privacy-focused Linux hardware device vendor.
Yeah.
That's the background for the story. So you want to talk about this new phone they're talking about?
Okay. So basically, they're going to call this the Librem 5, which definitely fits in with the rest of their naming conventions. So this article I'm on the OG Ubuntu article to start out with, but they basically talked about how at the time of writing, they got 104,000 on the project, and it achieved over 100,000 in funding on their crowdfunding campaign in just 4 days.
Yeah.
Which is a really impressive milestone.
It is a lot.
I mean, that's a good sign for it. But do realize they have 1.5 million is their target.
Right.
So, I mean, I feel like
it's always the thing with these privacy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Ubuntu phone raised a ton of money in the beginning too, but that they didn't end up reaching their milestone either, or end up reaching their funding goal either. So, I mean, I'm rooting for this because I think the idea of a phone with like hardware kill switches on that stuff is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because you so rarely see that on laptops, let alone like phones at all, and to have something that enters in the market that we would actually see being truly open source would be a big step forward.
Mhm.
So basically, it's going to be $600 as a tier to actually get one.
Yeah.
And there was, at the time of it, 148 people had actually backed it that way. They also had a $300 development kit. So if you wanted to develop apps for it,
Yeah.
you could get the developer kit. And then they had a $1,700 level, which offered a handset, a keyboard, a mouse, and a 30-inch monitor.
And
I'm not sure how $1,100 works, how those 4 things work out to add up
well,
to
hang on. All right.
$1,100.
So to be fair, the person who wrote the OMG Ubuntu article said that it's been a while since I went last shopping for one, but that has to be one heck of a keyboard and monitor bundle to add $1,100 on top of the cost. Here's the thing, though. If you're looking at a 30-inch monitor, I'm guessing that's not a crappy 1080p 30-inch monitor. I'm guessing guessing that's a 4K monitor. Those can easily get up to $800, $900 if you're getting a brand name one. So yeah, I can see that.
One with like full color spectrum support and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I can totally see that being a not super marked up price, and then also that is cool because
I'd like to take a specific look at what they're offering.
Right, yeah.
While you continue to talk.
It is neat that they're doing that because that kind of means that they're going for convergence at least a little bit. Now they're not shipping as part of the base bundle, but the fact that they're shipping a 30-inch monitor and a keyboard and mouse with their phone means that they are expecting that you'll plug the phone into this monitor and keyboard and mouse and use it as a desktop, because this phone, like Richard's going to talk about in a minute here, runs Linux. So yeah, you'll be able to have your phone on the go, working with it, and then get to your desk and then plug it into your monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Maybe have one set of equipment at your work and one set of equipment at your home, but take your phone back and forth with you. You know, it opens up all kinds of possibilities with convergence. That's what Ubuntu was working on. And now that Ubuntu has backed out of that space, it's nice to see that somebody else is trying to get into it. Did you find any more details out?
I was looking. I'm on their campaign page right now, and it does just say Librem 5 phone with a compatible 30-inch monitor, keyboard, and mouse. So I'm assuming then that the 30-inch monitor, like you're saying, is probably going to be pretty good. And they're trying to make
hope
when they say compatible, they're trying to emphasize. Working in kind of a seamless experience, hopefully, between them, which would definitely be a cool idea. Although compatible doesn't necessarily imply a seamless experience. Right. I mean, for all I know, that could just be an HDMI. But so basically, back to the other stuff in the article. Mm-hmm. I actually wanted to go to the beta news one because they gave a little more information on the actual details of it. Mm. But they specifically mention that it will run GNOME as the desktop environment, but it will be able to run basically any distro they want to make sure, any Linux compatible distro that you'll be able to put on it. It will come by default with PureOS, which is the same thing as they put on their laptops. And their goal with theirs, at least, was to make encrypted calls that mask your phone number, to encrypt text and emails, to set up VPN services. So that would be interesting. I guess you would get VPN out of the box, was what they were kind of talking about.
I think they're talking about having easy VPN setup.
Okay. So maybe it's not out of the box, but it's pretty much integrated and you can do it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Without having to say buy an external, buy a membership.
Or install third-party programs for it, install a VPN client, it'll just be integrated.
And then, of course, they mentioned the enable kill switches for the camera, microphone, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and even baseband. I assume by baseband they just mean the RF radio itself to communicate with cellular in general. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's really cool to have it for all 5 things, kill switches for that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, baseband's one you don't see a kill switch for that on a lot of phones.
Yeah.
So most people don't even know what a baseband is. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's most things. And they said PureOS obviously is going to be open source. The source code will be made publicly available, but that's not that surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that surprising, but it is pretty different. We were just talking before the show about how Apple respects privacy, but you can't see the source code, so you don't actually know if they're respecting your privacy for sure. And then Google says that they're spying on you and then shows you the source code so you can say, yep, they're definitely spying on me. And then there's some things that Google does that you can't see the source code for that's heavily restricted with licenses. And so, yeah, we had a user in our chat room saying that they didn't want to use G apps on their Android phone because even though Android is open source, not all the Google apps are. So, yeah, having a phone that is 100% open source is definitely something that a lot of people would welcome.
Yeah. I mean, in this article, one thing they also do point out is that it doesn't the quote like initial renders of it certainly don't make it
Oh,
look like
it's
they're
ugly.
keeping up with the
It is
trends of
ugly.
like,
Look
yeah.
at this phone. It looks horrible. It looks like a brick. Like it's too.
No.
Now they
They
cite
have slightly smaller bezels though, it looks like, still than the iPhone.
that. No,
But
well, let's try and figure out why it looks bad. So there are some sort of large bezels.
yeah. The bezels are slightly smaller than the iPhone. I think,
Yeah,
right
they're
now.
not. They're not even that big a bezel. I think. I mean, the corners, I guess, should be more rounded, huh?
Yeah.
I can't tell exactly how big it is from the renders. It looks a little big for a phone, I guess.
Yeah.
Either that or that just the icons on the screen are too big.
It looks a little, I don't know, it doesn't,
Just seems
it's more
off.
squarish than rectangular.
Yeah.
Something seems like like the ratio of height to width is not quite right for a phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the top and bottom bezels should be bigger more than anything, because I've had a phone with tiny side bezels, the LG G2, and it was great. But yeah, something about this looks off, and they should definitely get
It just
that.
worries me though when these are their renders, where you would think you can kind of do anything you want with the render.
On the one
and it
hand,
can,
yeah,
like,
but on
present
the
best
other,
idea.
yeah, that is true. But on the other hand, it means they still have the opportunity to go back and tweak things before they actually make it.
Yeah.
Looking at the back of the phone, yeah, I mean the back of it is all one material, like there's no seams or anything in the back, which should be nice. But I think the aspect ratio is off.
Yeah.
Like if you tilt your head, is that 16 to
height? It was.
is that 16 to 9? Is it a 9 to 16 aspect ratio? I can't tell.
Yeah, I can't tell either, and it doesn't
But-
really seem to mention it. I mean, let me go back to their
I mean,
thing.
a normal phone, I guess, isn't, is it? A normal phone is 16 to 10, or like my phone is.
Yeah.
Don't know about normal, but that might be what it is if it
Yeah,
is a
for
16 to
phones,
9 and we're not used to that. But yeah, we've got... It's a little thick. The buttons on the side are pretty big from the render. And then the back of it, just the way it's rounded, it definitely looks very strange. So...
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they'll make it look a little better before they launch.
If they ever want to catch this with the mainstream, they will probably have to do that.
Yeah,
But
well,
I
they're
don't
not
think
they're
that's
not
their initial
necessarily
target audience.
they're
though,
not
so.
on the one hand, some people would say, "Oh, they're not going for the mainstream. They're going for privacy conscious people." On the other hand, I'm privacy conscious and I would like a phone to look good. So,
Yeah.
just addressing that argument before it comes up.
I don't want my my smartphone to just look like it's a giant brick.
Right. And now it is worth mentioning that they've been working on R&D for this thing for 18 months. And this is sort of what they've been doing over the last 18 months when they've been shipping the laptops that they had sold before that. They've been working on this phone behind the scenes. It's also interesting, I just wanted to point out that this is a self-hosted crowdfunder. So the original Libre, like I said, I don't remember if it was Kickstarter or GoFundMe or Indiegogo or I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was definitely a third-party Kickstarter site that they were on. Whereas now, if you go to sign up for it, it is on Purism's website. So you buy it through their website. You're not going through anyone else, which is a good thing because, you're working directly with the person making it. Also a bad thing because you don't have somebody guaranteeing that you'll get it if something goes wrong. No insurance in that sense. But yeah, they have raised $174,000 as of today. They've got 50 days to raise the rest of it. I don't know what will happen if they only make part of it, but they've raised 11.6% so far. So we'll have the link in the show notes if you do want to support this. It looks like something you're interested in. And that is our last story for this week. Do you have any other thoughts on it?
Not really. I think we covered everything.
All right. Well,
I think we covered this one really well from pretty much every angle.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yeah, this was a pretty good week for Linux news. And if you do want to read any of the articles that we had on screen today, you can go to rr.knots.co as it's on the screen right there, and it will take you to a page with all the episodes of Rolling Release and all of their show notes. So yeah, if you do like the show, please consider supporting Nerd on the Street by going to nerdclub.knots.co, and that'll take you to a page where you can sign up on Patreon or right on our website through Stripe, and you can pay us $3 a month to keep making shows like this one. If you like getting your Linux news every week, that's like less than $1 per episode, so that's pretty good, I think. Yep. And my name is Jacob. You can find me on the website throughout the week. Hey, Richard, where can people find you throughout the week if they want more of you?
At Glorif22 on Twitter. Do you have that actually in the thing yet?
In what thing?
In the like view?
I mean, if I put your name up, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. At Glorf22 on Twitter. Mine's at JacobGKAU, but I don't tweet much, so you should just go to nerdonthestreet.com instead if you want to talk to me.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I also do have a blog at richardsprojects.net
That's
as well.
right.
There's a link from my Twitter to that as well. So.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this week. Hopefully you liked that news, and we'll be back with more news next week. I'm Jacob Kaufman.
I'm Richard Bimmer.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.